welcome to the Fantasy Flow. We're on day one of the NFL draft. It is on as we're recording. The Saints are on the clock at pick 14. So we have a lot of picks to discuss, but a lot of picks that you're going to get our live reactions to as well. How's it going, Andy?
Going good, yeah. Been chalk as we mentioned before, but it's been chalk to start. But man, it's exciting so far.
Yeah, total chalk. The first seven picks. I was worried we wouldn't have much to talk about, and then the Atlanta Falcons take Michael Penix Jr. What in the world? That
Oh
was
yeah,
out of nowhere.
that was that was a shock for us all. Yeah, that's
Nobody had that. I didn't see that anywhere.
right. And you, both of us are watching the Pat McAfee broadcast as well, and they were going just as crazy.
I mean, so they have Kirk Cousins. It was like they won the offseason when they signed Kirk Cousins. It was such a catch. And now you like are they gonna make Michael Penix wait in the wings as Kirk Cousins kind of finishes out his prime? Or do they have something else in store? This is kind of what I'm wondering. Could we see Kirk Cousins on the move?
I,
What do you think this means for Kirk?
yeah, Kurt. I think they're going to keep Kirk. I mean, to pay. I know Kirk is older, but to pay Kirk 100 million guaranteed just to go draft, just to trade, that means somebody else has to front the bill. That means draft picks for next year, not this year. I see where you're going,
Yeah,
and as we're seeing the draft right now, I mean, all 13 picks have been offensive players.
that's
So
got to be a first in NFL
right.
history.
So maybe they're doing a bit of fantasy football. Maybe they're thinking dynasty just like you and me are at times, you know?
Yeah, no, I think you're onto something. I think if they were to move Cousins to make way for Michael Penix Jr., it would have been probably to the Broncos, but they just took their guy in Bo Nix.
Exactly. Yeah. It's what's a can you think of any other scenario similar to this where a team has a solidified quarterback or just paid a quarterback
Right,
and
right.
picks up
No,
a first round quarterback like that and then in the draft picks up a first round quarterback?
I honestly cannot think of a situation where a big name free agent quarterback and a top 10 pick went to the same place. Like,
Yeah.
there's no precedent for that I'm aware of. I mean, we've seen in the last decade the NFL gravitating away from having the quarterbacks pay their dues, right? Like, that's just not a thing. That's like, oh, something's wrong with you if you aren't like
Right.
starting most of the games in your rookie year. The one scenario that I thought of that might come the closest was the Chiefs with they had Alex Smith, who's kind of right around that same age Kirk Cousins is
Yeah.
now, and they took Patrick Mahomes. I believe it was 14 or 15 overall. So there is a little bit of similarity there.
Yeah, I think they're gonna have have he has to play behind. There's no way they're paying Kirk 100 mil and then gonna put in Michael Penix week one, week three, week five. He's definitely gonna be a backup if both quarterbacks are on the roster by the season by the time the first
Yep.
snaps hits.
Yep. Yeah, I forget who I was listening to, but they were recalling an interview. Where can we find the next Matt Ryan? Like this franchise
Mhm.
needs its next guy,
Yes.
and it's that's what's funny about the draft is that it's after free agency. So just like best laid plans, you set up what you control what you can control with free agency. So they made sure that they had a quarterback, but then throughout the draft process and how the draft board fell, they just said, "Oh, cool. We get the guy that we were really high on."
Right. Yeah. And You know that owner. I'm blanking on his name, but that owner maybe this is one of those owner decisions where I was so used to having that position as a stable,
Yeah,
reliable
exactly.
source, and now I don't want to go through what we just went through without at post Matt Ryan. So let's get Kirk Cousins. Let's get Michael Penix. Let's solidify this quarterback room for the now and for the future.
Yeah, yeah. I think his name's Arthur Blank,
Arthur, yeah,
if I have
thank
that
you.
right.
Yep,
And
yep,
yeah, he's just like, man, I'm too old to be playing these games with these like middling,
right,
bridge quarterbacks.
right,
I mean, that is a wild pick. Um, it's going to have a lot of low draft grades from a lot of outlets or whatever because it's not a position of need. Especially compared to all the other picks, that was something that I was just like, wow, every team seems to be drafting for need. It's like you look at their
right.
biggest need and they filled it. And that's not normally the case. Normally it's just like best player off the board, but we saw Marvin Harrison fall to 4. We saw I mean, no defensive players have been taken as of this recording. So it's just it's very interesting. Everyone's just drafting for need. A lot of those bad teams that are picking at the beginning of the draft, they need offense.
Yeah, speaking of defensive players, Latu
Well,
Latu. I'm gonna completely butcher that name, but from
to the
UCLA,
Colts.
edge rusher to the Colts. Yeah, pick 15.
Wow.
Yep, first defensive player, just as you're saying it. First defensive
Oh
player
my
off the board.
goodness.
Now,
Okay.
us being
Our Seattle Seahawks.
us being Seattle Seahawks fans, that is what I was eyeing. I was saying to myself, how is there no defensive edge players being drafted so far? So, congratulations to that man and being drafted to the Colts. But I really wish he was a Seahawk. But I'm really hoping they go D line right here.
Okay, yeah, yeah. The Seahawks are on the clock. I was just about to ask what you want them to do, and there's a name that is at the very top of ESPN's site, Dallas Turner. Everyone
Dallas
assumed he was
turn.
going 8 to the Falcons, or maybe the Jets, or something like that. But either way, he was going to be one of the top defensive players taken. I never thought he would fall to the Seahawks. I don't,
Exactly.
man. All I really know about him is that he is just a crazy athlete who might not be very refined, but with the right coaching, he has the highest ceiling of any defensive player in this draft.
Right. Right. And just last year we took what was consensus of the number one
Yep.
cornerback in the first round at pick number 5 with Witherspoon, and going here. I'm sorry, I'm not looking at you. I'm just waiting for it to update because
Yeah, no, you're good.
I'm so
I mean, they
psyched
could still
about it.
trade down, right? They could still trade down. I
They could. It would break my heart just a little bit, but yeah.
There's a lot of defensive players I like, so I mean, depending on what they could get, I wouldn't mind that. But it was kind of like with JSN last year,
Mm,
where he was the number one receiver, and I was just
yeah.
like, man, I'm not really allowing myself to like dream about him falling all the way there.
Right.
That was kind of me with Dallas Turner. I didn't really even look into that as a possibility, but now
Well,
it's a very real possibility.
yeah, one defensive player drafted in the first 15 rounds, or sorry, excuse me, first
Yep.
15 picks.
Yep.
It definitely
I
allows
got
for
you.
some flexibility.
Yeah, that's wild. I mean, I just mentioned how everyone's drafting for need, and all these bad teams at the beginning of the round need offense. The Seahawks need the exact opposite. We had a pretty good offense last year, but our
Right.
defense let us down. So this draft
100%.
board's fallen perfectly. Oh, and it looks like the pick is in. I don't know what it is yet, but that they didn't
Ooh,
trade back.
you're ahead of me. I like it. Keep
Okay.
me posted.
Okay. Yeah, the pick is in, it says. So we're just waiting for them to announce it. I mean, the guy that I had written down that would be my first choice was Jared Verse.
Mm,
Among all of the edge rushers, I thought he had the best combination of just like freaky, just like wow plays, but also he's refined and he has experience. I think that the Seahawks timeline is right now, so I don't really want to wait on a project, but
right.
I'm just as fine with Dallas Turner. That would be
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. yeah. I'm a UCLA fan at heart, so
Oh,
of course I was hoping to add another Bruin to the team, but I'm going to be okay with any type of defensive, especially D line, but anybody on the defensive side of the ball. I think I'll be okay with.
so the Seahawks don't have a second round pick. They've
Right.
picked here, so that means we won't see another player added to our team until round three.
Correct.
So this guy's he's got to be a huge difference maker.
Yeah, it's gonna be a hit no matter.
Oh my god, the suspense.
I know. Now Pat has Chris Ballard on the show.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, one of the things that I was going to start off this pod talking about was reactions to all the trades that went on. And no trades went on.
No trades. No trades.
Everyone's just sticking and picking. The Vikings, they moved up one spot to take J.J. McCarthy, gave up some day three capital, not important.
Right.
I think there must have been a competing offer from the Broncos that they needed to outbid them for. That's the only explanation I can think of. But yeah, basically a nothing trade, especially for the Jets. Uh,
Yeah, the Jets just had to trade move one pick down, and the Jets didn't need to draft a quarterback, so the Jets got their guy
yeah.
from Penn State, and the Vikings got theirs, and the Jets added a couple extra draft picks in the meantime just to move
Yep.
one spot.
Yep. We'll get into that more for sure. But yeah, that's like a win-win trade. Yeah, last week I made a prediction that the Bears and the Seahawks would both trade down because
Mm,
both of them lack a second round pick. And neither one of them, I mean, I'm talking about the Bears trading back from 9, right? So like at
right.
that point, neither one of them have like alarming needs, but they both just stick and pick is the theme of this first round so far.
Yep, for sure. Well, I mean, maybe that's has to do with a little bit based on other teams trading up, trading away the farm to get their guy, and it hasn't worked out. AKA uh, the Panthers. I mean, luckily for the 49ers,
Oh,
it
that's
worked out.
interesting.
Yeah,
That's interesting. Yeah, just kind
yeah,
of the cautionary tale that was last year.
yeah.
You think maybe
Maybe,
spooked some teams.
and it's a lot of new GMs this year. As we're seeing
Hmm.
Bill on the Pat McAfee show. He's not
Hmm.
behind the compute. He's not behind the in the war room this year, and just a lot of new GMs trying to establish themselves. They don't feel like they need to make a huge splashy play right off the bat.
That's a great point. Yeah, I think both of those are great points because this is I'm wondering like what the least amount of trades in a first round in recent history is.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get there, but yeah, this has been very chalk. It's been very stick and pick. Yeah, I just want to talk a little bit more about that JJ McCarthy move up and then that selection. I have that written down so far as the best pick of the draft
Mm.
relative to value. I guess I'm a little bit higher on JJ McCarthy than consensus. For fantasy, I think he can be serviceable. I don't think he's going to provide a whole lot of rushing value. Um, okay, so I just saw the Seahawks pick.
As did I.
Byron
Byron
Murphy.
Murphy the second, Texas defensive tackle.
All right.
Big guy. Six
Yeah, that's
one.
definitely a need.
Yeah, 6'1", 297, almost 300 pounds. That's crazy.
He's a huge dude. I remember him putting so much pressure on Michael Penix in that playoff game.
Right.
Um, yeah, that's not too surprising,
I,
but I am
yeah.
wondering how much you know production he's gonna have. I'm super curious to see what that's gonna look like in our new defensive-minded head coach's defensive system.
Oh my gosh, the Vikings have traded up to 17 for
Whoa!
23. Oh my gosh. They are making
Whoa!
plays after plays, moves after moves.
Okay, so the Vikings, they grabbed McCarthy, perfect fit for their scheme. They didn't have to give up the farm to go get him. He fell all the way to 10. They give up, like I said, some day three capital. So they essentially just stayed where they were at 11, and they were able to get their guy. And I think that that's a great fit. I think it's smart. I think McCarthy's ready to play, and he is going
Ooh.
into a great situation with that head coach, with Justin Jefferson. I'm so excited for them.
I mean, they must have been waiting. They had to have been waiting on the Seahawks to see what the Seahawks were going to do, because they this has to be
Yeah,
a Dallas Turner pick, in my opinion.
yeah, you could definitely be right. That wouldn't shock me at all. I mean,
Yeah,
basically, they be coming away with the quarterback that fits their system the best, and what most people thought to be the best defensive player in the draft.
right. That, yeah. I mean, that is
Unless it's
crazy.
not.
They are making moves. They are not messing around.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. They waited until Seattle made their pick, so they have one guy in mind. They have such a need in the secondary too, but I think this is pretty deep class for safety.
I guess, yeah. In my opinion, it has to be a Dallas Turner, or sorry, not yeah, Dallas Turner, or
Yeah.
anybody on the defensive side. There it
Oh,
is.
there it
Yep,
is.
called it.
Dallas Turner.
There it is.
That's pretty disappointing to me as a Seahawks fan. He fell right to us, and we said,
Yeah,
no thanks. We'll take the big guy in the middle when
right.
we've been needing a scary pass rusher. We haven't actually scared opposing offenses with our pass rush in
Yeah,
years. And we take a big uh, run clogger instead.
yeah. I'm not too. Yeah, yeah. Well, okay. All right. We got a
Okay.
defensive lineman. We have to be okay with
Yeah,
it.
yeah, no, I mean we're gonna be better than we were last year for sure,
Right.
and I'm, you know, McDonald's scheme, I think, is gonna we're really gonna see what he's all about this year, with being at the head of the controls. This, I think, was just as much his pick as it was Schneider's pick. What do
Yes.
you think about that?
Yeah. Yeah. I think yeah, that's a good question. I mean, John actually has the team now, so I don't know. I think, yeah, I would like to think that that it was an agreement between the two. What's
Yeah.
besides Minnesota making all these crazy moves and the Michael Penix, what's another surprise pick you had that has happened so far?
I was surprised, and I don't think you were as surprised as I was because last week you said you were really high on Bo Nix. That was one of our predictions. You said
Mm,
Bo Nix. You're higher than consensus. You think he's gonna be drafted. You said he was gonna be the fifth quarterback taken off the board. That
yeah.
teams were gonna kind of place a premium on his specific skill set. Turns out he was the sixth quarterback taken, but he
I
went
know.
at 12.
Oh.
He went at 12. That's so much earlier than everyone else thought that he would go.
Yeah.
So that's really stood out to me, and I don't know that it stood out in a positive way, to be honest. I know
Hmm.
he's kind of a good scheme fit. We can talk about that, but just 12 for Bo Nix raised an eyebrow for me. What do you think?
Yeah. That's pretty high. I will admit. But like I said, I said I was one off. I was one off. So um
No, yeah, you thought that Bo Nix was going to raise some eyebrows, and he definitely did, dude.
I, I'm gonna
I
say
kind of like that fit. I like that fit. I just don't know about that fit at 12. Like, who else was
yeah.
going to take Bo Nix?
Yeah, that's. I mean, but again, teams are impatient. Sean Payton
Yeah,
has a lot to prove, and this is just another notch on the belt to say I can do it or I can't do it, because
sure.
they're about even right now, both sides of that coin. So
Yeah,
he has to
yeah.
prove people wrong.
I don't remember if I said it on the podcast or not, but to me, Bo Nix is like late stage Drew Brees.
Mm,
So that match with Sean Payton just makes total sense in my mind. I think like he's older, he's mature, he's gonna play day one. They're gonna ask him to play day one, so it's a good fit in that sense. And
right.
I think he's just gonna execute the offense. And I think a lot of times what we see with picks where it's kind of like, oh, maybe wasn't the best player on the board, or oh, I think sounds like you're asking him to do too much. I think a lot of it stems from like overconfidence that these NFL coaches have in themselves to like
Yes.
coach up these players. I think we see
Yes.
that a lot.
Yeah. Ego is a hell of a thing.
Totally.
I'm going to go with Brock Bowers to the Raiders at 13. Right after that,
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
I didn't. Don't get me wrong. Brock Bowers is great, but to a Raiders team that needs a lot more than just a great tight end, uh, I'm kind of the same thing you're mentioning is best player on the board. Probably actually at that position, probably, and at that spot probably is, but I don't know, just the fit there. Um, yeah, it definitely
Man,
shocked me.
I'm a huge fan of Brock Bowers. I think he's one of the best players in this whole draft. And that landing spot is so weird.
Yeah, yes,
They
yeah,
took Michael Mayer just last year.
I
And
know.
now what is Michael Mayer? I'm assuming Michael Mayer's the backup, but like I don't know. Maybe they're gonna play them both. Maybe they're gonna
Yeah,
make Brock Bowers pay his dues. I don't know. Either way, their quarterback isn't very inspiring. I mean, I love Gardner Minshew, but not for fantasy. I mean, we'll get to the fantasy analysis, but
yeah,
this seems kind of disappointing on all fronts, except for maybe NFL football. If you're a Raiders fan, you just got Brock
yeah.
Bowers. That's something to be excited about.
And if you're Brock Bowers, you got to be happy if you are in fact Brock Bowers.
Sure. Yeah. I think all these guys are
Yeah,
one of the best days of their lives.
yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
Oh my
Congrats to
goodness.
all of them. But yeah.
Looks like the Bengals have picked. I can't see who it is yet. We're waiting on them to announce that.
Okay, okay. Yep, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, the only team making any trades so far, Minnesota Vikings.
Minnesota, they're not messing around. They're making some moves, man.
I'm gonna read you the terms of their deal. They moved up
Please
to
do.
make that pick. Yeah, so they go from 23 to 17, and in exchange for moving down to 23, the Jacksonville Jaguars they get a fifth round pick in this year's draft and a third and a fourth in next year's draft.
Wow.
And what do you think about that? Your first reaction?
First reaction is Dallas Turner is going to be way better than that third and fourth round pick for next year. But that means they're losing more picks. They moved up 5 spots. So they're very both moves that they've made have been just tiny little jumps,
Mm.
but they haven't had to give up the farm. So props to them on that. But that just means less picks. And so to me, that screams we're ready and we're ready now.
Yeah, yeah. I'm kind of like, who cares? Like, it's not your future first. It's not a future second.
Yep.
I don't know. Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. It looks like a lot on paper. It's like, oh wow, well for only that many spots, but how many Dallas Turners are there in this draft?
Yeah. Yep. And I mean, they had like we mentioned, they had to have been just waiting to see where Seattle went to go if he was still available. I wonder if they make that same move if Seattle goes Dallas Turner and Byron Murphy's on the board.
Yeah, I tend to not think so.
I don't think so
I think
either.
their jaws probably hit the floor.
As did almost the whole second half of the league being like, holy crap, there's so many defensive players available,
Yeah.
and usually the teams at the bottom end of the draft that means they did well. They made the playoffs, they went to the Super Bowl, whatever it may be, right? their offense probably helped them get them there, so they don't necessarily need to invest in that offense. So you're just giving them more ammunition.
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting. We saw a 14 pick run of nothing but offense, and
That
now
yeah.
three defensive players in a row.
Yep. Yep. It's I mean the pendulum had to swing eventually, right?
Yep, yep, and we'll see what the Bengals do with the whole T. Higgins situation in limbo. Their
Mm-hmm.
star receiver, they have two star receivers. He's one of them,
Yep.
and I remember. Oh, okay, the pick is in, and they went offensive tackle, Amarius Mims from
Mims,
Georgia.
Georgia. Yep. That's good. Joe Burrow's he's had 2 great years and 2 hurt years. So
Yeah, I think Bengals fans are pumping their fist right now because
yep.
that means that Joe Burrow is going to be better protected than he has been, and if they took wide receiver, then that means well, it could mean that T. Higgins is out the door. But this to me says that they're bringing the band back together and they're
Mm-hmm.
adding offensive tackle. So
Yep. Yep. I agree.
that's great news for them. Um, Something else while we wait for the Rams selection that I wanted to circle back to. Um, I think a big winner from what transpired earlier in the draft is Aaron Rodgers. I talked about it last week. I said that I was going to be in on Aaron Rodgers for redraft this year if they went offensive line, and they did. They moved back one spot, picked up a couple extra bucks, and they took Olu Fashanu from Penn State.
Yep.
And I'm not going to pretend to know anything about Olu Fashanu from Penn State, but I know that he's one of the highest rated tackles in the draft. And that is exactly what Aaron Rodgers needs. And I just think what happened last year was a fluke. Hindsight's 2020. Not a
Yeah.
lot of people are saying that. A lot of people are blaming the Jets and for not having a good enough line. A lot of people are blaming Aaron Rodgers for
Oh.
being too old. But it's like, let's call it is what it is. It was a fluke. It's just a freak thing happened on the first play of the game. It wasn't one of those non-contact. Like he did get sacked on that
Right.
play,
Right.
but to me that's just a total fluke. Just like all ACLs. I mean, we see the best athletes in the country. They just tear their ACL. It happens.
Right.
It's fluky. So to me, I really want to be in on Aaron Rodgers because I know I can get him at a discount, and just that pick, that offensive line addition, just gives me that extra confidence that I think I needed to really
Yeah.
plant my flag on him this year.
Yep. I totally agree. To that same point, if it's not a fluke, if that wasn't a fluke, then why did Atlanta draft Michael Penix Jr.?
There's been great press on Michael Penix Jr. lately, and I've heard a lot of team executives, people who represent the NFL scouting department. They talk about how overcoming all of those injuries they see as a huge plus for Michael Penix.
Yep.
So that was it sounds like a great spin from Michael Penix's department, but it wasn't from his department. It was from the league, and I think
Yeah.
we saw that. He went 8 overall. So
Right. But
uh,
yeah, I mean, if it can happen to Aaron, it can happen to
Yep.
Kirk Cousins. It can happen to Matthew Stafford. It can happen to any other older quote unquote older quarterback, Russell Wilson. Like, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
You're exactly right, dude. And
So-
I want to give you more credit because last week, one of the things you mentioned was all the quarterback injuries that went down last year. You said it was like some astronomical number of different starting quarterbacks that we saw last year. And you were so right. We've seen, what was it, 6 quarterbacks in the top 12.
yeah, yeah, half. Yeah, every other pick was a
We've
quarterback.
never seen that.
Yeah. No, we have never seen that. And yeah, I think teams are starting to recognize. I would hope, and as we're seeing, teams are starting to recognize that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have any other big winners from what we've seen from the draft so far as it pertains to fantasy football.
Yeah, yeah. I think riding that quarterback train, I think Kyler, I mean, instantly gets the number one wide receiver in this draft. All the other wide receivers he had that he was familiar throwing the ball to left his team this past year. Rondell Moore, Hollywood Brown, they go to their respective teams. So Marvin Harrison can jump right in and be, as we've all predicted, that and understand his talent, but actually now that it's come to fruition, which team he's on. And I mean, the Cardinals have to fight to be relevant in a tough division. So this is only going to propel them forward, and it's going to give Kyler a huge increase to be able to have a reliable wide receiver. Similar to Hollywood Brown, he is fast, he's quick,
Yeah.
small, but and catch the long ball. But to have somebody that's actually going to be out on the field with Marvin Harrison and be really talented with and be very skillful and talented with all his attributes coming to the team. I mean, Kyler's a huge winner in my mind.
Yeah, I think that's a great call. I think he has one of the best young tight ends in the game. A lot of people kind of forget about that when they're
Hmm.
talking about the receiving core that Arizona has. They have nobody. It's a massive need. And like, yeah, it's a need, but James Conner's great out of the backfield. Trey McBride is one of the best
Right.
young tight ends, and he caught a ton of balls at the end of last year.
Yeah.
And now they have Marvin Harrison Jr., obviously the son of legendary wide receiver Marvin Harrison. Yeah, I think that's a great call. And I don't think they're done. They have, I think they were tied for the most draft picks in the league in this draft, and I don't think they're done taking pass catchers.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think it was them, the Rams, and I can't remember the third team. Maybe the Bengals. They all were tied for 11 picks.
Yeah, yeah. Cardinals, Rams, and Packers.
Packers. Thank you. Thank you. The Speaking about the Rams, they just made one of those 11 picks. Jared Verse, Florida State edge rusher.
Good for them.
Yep. And then of course they go defensive line to help fill in that gap of Aaron
Yeah,
Donald, right?
yeah, that was very predictable, and I just feel like Jared Verse, like I said, that was my number one choice for the Seahawks, and he just perfectly fell into their lap. They didn't have to trade, they didn't have to make a move,
No.
and they were just like, "Oh, cool, yeah, a great, plug and play, blue chip edge rusher. Yeah, sounds good."
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you, please. Please
Yeah.
and thank you.
On the clock right now is the Pittsburgh Steelers at pick 20,
20. Yep.
and
It says pick is in on
they,
my end.
oh, really?
I was knocking the Bears for a Rome Dunze because they already have the talent at the wide receiver spot. But honestly, the more I look at it, I think I'm gonna ride your train of the Bears. I don't know how much I believe in Caleb Williams right off the bat, but I like the Roma Dunze pick for a redraft as well. Um, Keenan could easily get hurt. DJ Moore was he had a great year last year, but a little inconsistent, a lot of highs and a lot of deep lows. So, um, yeah, I could easily see, especially if Keenan gets hurt, you know.
I can see what you're saying too for redraft, but for dynasty and for NFL purposes, I think it's just really smart to just always have dogs, just especially at the wide receiver position. I've heard people talking about the financial side of things, what it means to use a first round draft pick on a player. Um, and they were kind of using Brock Bowers as a jumping off point. It was like using a first round
Right.
draft pick on a tight end, that first round rookie salary, it's not that big of a discount to giving an actual veteran a new contract. It's like what's the drop off there? It's small, but then we're seeing wide receivers, like great wide receivers due for a new contract, and it's astronomical. So if you can
Yes.
get one of
Not
those
only financially
playmaker wide
for dollar
receivers
amount, but also
on a rookie
they have a
deal.
guaranteed
That's
4-year contract, and the team can pick up a
financially
5th-year
speaking
option if they
the biggest
please.
bang for
All
your
these
buck.
picks right here. So we just saw today AJ Brown get a contract extension. We just saw his teammate Devontae Smith a week ago get a contract extension. Both of them were
Yep.
only for 3 years. All these players being drafted right now are guaranteed to be on that. Well, minus a trade, pending a trade or whatever. But the contract is a 4-year contract. So
All right, yeah. We'll reconvene after the end of the first round and talk about all those the last 10 teams in the first round and the fantasy implications of those picks. All right, welcome back. The fantasy flow. We are resuming just after the conclusion of round 1, and since we've been gone, there were really only 4 fantasy relevant picks, all of those being wide receivers. Everything else was either defense or offensive line. Of those 4 wide receivers, Brian Thomas Jr., Xavier Worthy, Ricky Pearsall, and Xavier Legette, which of those selections stood out to you the most, Andy?
I'm going to have to go with Xavier Worthy to the Kansas City Chiefs. The Bills trade out of the 28 spot to the 32 spot for the Kansas City Chiefs to bump up and take Xavier Worthy there. I thought that was the most bonehead move. I couldn't believe that not only did the Bills trade out, but they traded to the Kansas City Chiefs, their arch nemesis, and then the Chiefs go and get another fast guy. Andy Reid just loves drafting free agents that can run fast, and Patrick Mahomes can throw the ball too.
Yeah, it's like when Tom Brady and the Patriots were dominating the AFC. It's like any team that makes a move with them, it's just like, stop helping them. What are we doing?
What are you doing? Exactly.
And it's crazy because everybody knows the Bills, they moved on from Stephon Diggs. They need a wide receiver. And they know the Chiefs also need a wide receiver. So, I mean, they have the first pick of the second round. A lot of people have been linking them to A.D. Mitchell. I don't even like A.D. Mitchell. But if that was their plan all along, and they get their guy, and they get some extra, they get some extra capital, it's like you can make the case that it wasn't dumb.
Yeah.
But like, even if you get what you wanted all along, you also helped the Chiefs get what they wanted. So what are you really doing to help advance your team past the teams in front of you? I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know what it means for their timeline. I imagine a lot of Bills fans are very frustrated.
I would be. We posed a question with each other at the beginning of this to ask what was the worst pick or what was the worst move, and of course it came. In my opinion, that was the worst move.
Yeah, I mean, it was. They don't have a first round pick. Like they don't have a player.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be a huge talking point
Right.
around the NFL landscape tonight and going into tomorrow. And they're going to make a pick to start off. Well, unless they trade down again, but yeah.
Yeah.
And they're gonna celebrate and they're gonna say, this is the guy we were targeting all along. Like no matter what happens, no matter who it is, that's what's gonna come out. And I don't know. I don't love it. I really don't love it. You just know that in the divisional round of the playoffs next year, it's going to be Bills Chiefs, and Xavier Worthy is going to just catch an absolute bomb.
Pop off. Yep.
Yeah, you just know it's going to happen. He could finish with 2 catches for 60 yards and a touchdown. Like, it's just he's gonna make them regret that choice.
Right. I agree.
That's so tough. And it's kind of crazy because he's not even nearly as big a name as Brian Thomas Jr., who kind of went under the radar. I think in most other years, he would be one of these guys that everyone's talking about, everyone's excited for, and it's kind of like, oh, well, he's not one of the big 3. So, like, people don't really give him his dues, but he's a first round wide receiver, and we've seen in years past sometimes the guys who go to competent organizations, competent offenses near the later part of round one, those guys have better careers than some of the early wide receivers that get taken.
Right.
Uh, so I'm very high on Brian Thomas Jr. Before the process, and now he gets Trevor Lawrence, who you can do a lot worse than Trevor Lawrence.
Right.
So I am. It's wheels up for Brian Thomas Jr. I'm gonna try and target him wherever I can, because I think he is being overlooked in favor of those other three wide receivers, and I just kind of want to scroll back and take a look. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr., he's going to be the featured number one with a great quarterback in Kyler Murray. You cannot say the same for Malik Neighbors, who has Daniel Jones.
Right.
I mean, how many 3-and-outs is that offense going to see? I like Neighbors better than Brian Thomas Jr. They're college teammates.
Right.
I think they're both great. I love what Neighbors does after the catch. But honestly, for fantasy, you could totally make the case. Brian Thomas Jr. greater sign Malik Neighbors just because of the situation. When was the last time the Giants had a good offense?
Yeah, and they're kind of like the Packers. They have competition at the wide receiver spot. You know, I mean, of course, Brian Thomas is going to have that competition with Christian Kirk, but at least he has a better quarterback play, better coaching. I mean, I hate to dog on Brian Dable with the Giants, and had a great first year, but and is Daniel Jones even going to be ready? I mean, these are all big question marks surrounding.
It could be Drew Lock.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. No, I don't know. That just totally sounds like an ownership move to not take a quarterback from the Giants because
Right.
they're in such denial about Daniel Jones and they're convinced he's not the problem. He is the problem.
Right.
It's not Dable. Like I think we're on the same page. We both like Brian Dable, but that offense is not going to roll until that situation really changes. And Rome Odunze, I mean, I love him for Dynasty, but for redraft, there's no way I'm taking Rome Odunze ahead of Brian Thomas Jr. With DJ Moore and Keenan Allen there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It just depends on what lens you're looking at this through.
Right.
I mean, I know Christian Kirk is there, but he does most of his dirty work in the slot.
Yep.
And Brian Thomas Jr. is the total opposite. He's 6'4". He's on the outside, and he's running those deep routes. He's running those posts, those goes, and those kind of targets. He will see those. He will start, and I'm excited. You know, you hit on 2 of those in a game, and that's enough fantasy points for your whole week. So
True.
I'm pretty high on that, and I don't even know how much it takes away from Christian Kirk. It is competition, but like I said, they're totally different flavors of wide receiver. So I think it's a smart, good fit there. And they traded back to get him. That feels like stealing.
Yes, I agree. Speaking about taking away targets and controversy surrounding the wide receiver position, Ricky Pearsall for the Pearsall for the for the 49ers. Wow. That's we'll see how that relates to day 2 and round 2 and 3 with their other competition.
Everyone's going to be talking all night and all morning unless news breaks sooner about what that means for the wide receiver room in San Francisco. Is one of them going to be moved, going to be traded?
Right.
I heard that going into draft night for Ayuk, they were looking for either a first-round pick or a second-round pick plus another pick in next year's draft.
Wow.
So
Wow.
A second-round pick plus something in 2025. That's definitely still on the table.
True. True.
Imagine if the Bills pulled the trigger on that. If they sent 33 and something in 2025 for Ayuk.
Yeah. I wouldn't dog them as much. That's for dang sure. It's
interesting, right? Because would you rather give that contract that you would have given to Stephon Diggs to a 25, 26-year-old Ayuk.
Yes.
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 Yes, you would rather
Yes.
give it to that player.
Right.
But now you are sacrificing pick 33 overall to do so.
Mm.
Is that worth it? I don't know. And the fact that I don't know
Yeah.
means it's definitely in the conversation.
Yeah,
It's
that's
within the
true.
realm of
That's a good point.
possibility.
It's a good way of looking at it. Yeah, for sure.
We're kind of burying the lead though, because last week I mentioned Ricky Pearsall as the player that I was higher on than consensus. I was so excited for Ricky Pearsall. I never even thought that he would be a first round pick. I was higher than consensus, and I did not have him in the first round.
Yeah.
Ahead
Yeah.
of Lad McConkey, ahead of AD Mitchell,
Right.
and I mean, shoot, I'm very excited for that. But unless one of those guys is moved,
He's stuck in a hard place.
he is
Yeah.
right. Like
Yeah.
I'm excited that I feel like my analysis and my scouting, my take was right. But at the same time, it's a bummer because I wanted Ricky Pearsall on my team, but now is he going to be behind Debo Samuel? Is he going to be
Yes.
behind Ayuk, George
Yes.
Kittle? Is he
Yes.
going to get more or less receptions than Christian McCaffrey? Like that's insane. How
Yeah.
many? I I forget. I was listening to I was consuming some other content. I think it was around JJ McCarthy, and it was about like, oh, he's a Shanahan quarterback, and how that's like
Mm.
kind of a backhanded compliment
Yeah.
because you basically just said, well, if he went to a team that had two Pro Bowl wide receivers, a Pro Bowl running back, and a Pro Bowl tight end, he could work in the NFL.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I
That's
think
how loaded the 49ers
I
are.
know.
So
I know. It's ridiculous.
I'm kind of bummed that Ricky Pearsall is in that situation. And
Hmm.
I mean, we saw Juwan Jennings eat in the Super Bowl.
Yes. Yep.
People, I remember it was like the third quarter and people were talking about Juwan Jennings being the Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah.
So, if I had to make the case for Ricky Pearsall, that would be it. But like Juwan Jennings himself is still there.
Yeah.
So I'm a
It's
little
tough.
frustrated with that. Yeah, that is kind of a tricky situation because you love the draft capital, but man, there's just so many mouths to feed in San Fran. Unlike Carolina, total opposite situation. They trade up into the first round. They get Xavier Legette, or as the commissioner would say, Xavier Leggett. Not much competition for targets, but
No.
at the same time, gross.
Yeah. Yeah. I think him with Carolina is. I mean, you've said it before. Is they're trying to prove a point that Bryce Young is what they did do the right thing by drafting Bryce Young, and this is going to help solidify that. So. Adam Thielen, who knows how much longer he has left in the tank. We've been saying that for the last a year or two. Deontay Johnson, he's going to come in hungry, but how skillful will he be on that team? So this is a great opportunity for Xavier to make a name for himself right out of the gate.
Yeah, yeah. Xavier Legette, he is kind of that AJ Brown, Debo Samuel mold where a lot of his work, a lot of his production comes after the catch. So I think that the Panthers are thinking, okay, now that we have this player with this set of skills, it's going to set up Bryce Young for a lot of easy sort of gimmies.
Yes.
A lot of nice quick slants, maybe some bubble screens, just like first read, get it to the guy with the most playmaking ability, and it's just gonna help keep the offense on track.
Right.
I totally get it. I think if the Panthers lose every game this year, 40-30, they're gonna be patting themselves on the back, saying, "Hey, look, we got a quarterback who gets us 30 points a game." Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just one of those situations where everyone loses their jobs if Bryce Young has
Yes.
another season like he did last year. So
Yeah.
it's all
100%.
about Bryce Young. I mean, honestly, most of them already lost their jobs. Thinking about their head coach, uh, the guy who replaced the head coach
Yeah.
also got fired. I'm pretty sure he
Yes.
asked to be
Yes.
fired. That
Yes.
was just it's such a bad situation there.
It
But
is. It is. So good luck, Xavier. We're wishing the best for you.
hey, yeah, I mean, we haven't even really got there, but I like the player. I think he's I would be stoked if he was on my team. He's not, but yeah, I don't know. I think I'm staying clear of him and basically all Panthers for
Yes.
redraft, and if I can help it for dynasty.
Yep. I totally agree. I'm right there with you.
Man. All right. So that was it for round one.
Round
There's
one.
a lot to come. Still a lot of great players available. Um, my prediction that Lad McConkey would be a first round pick. Unfortunately, it was Ricky Pearsall instead.
Yup.
But
Yup.
he's him and AD Mitchell are probably the highest profile, especially for fantasy football, the highest profile wide receivers on the board. No running backs have been selected yet, so the next time we talk, I think we're gonna have
Yes.
a lengthy running back discussion. How many of these guys do you think could go in round
Well,
two,
my
let alone
prediction
day
is the
two?
first 50. So that means what? We're 32. That means 18
Right.
into the second round. So I'm thinking that I'm thinking maybe three on day round 2 and 3. I'm guessing three, no more than 5 running backs will get drafted.
Yeah, yeah. I think the big two, the consensus that everyone loves, Trey Benson and Jonathan Brooks. I think
Right.
they're definitely gonna go, and I'm very excited to see where they land. Because for fantasy football, I mean, a
Mm-hmm.
nice rookie running back in a good spot.
Yeah.
There's nothing juicier. And the Cowboys selection, what
Yeah,
are they,
I think you're
54 or
right.
something like that? I think it might be one of those landing spots that's just so obvious. Another team might need to jump them
Right.
if they're interested in one of those top guys.
Yep.
So that's going to be some drama to look out for. Other guys outside of those top two, Andy, I know you're a big
Mm-hmm.
Jalen Wright guy from Tennessee. I think he definitely goes day two. Uh, Maybe not round two, but we'll see. Either way, I think it's rounds 2 or 3, and then
Mm-hmm.
same goes for Braylon Allen, my guy out of
Yeah.
Wisconsin. Um, Boy, yeah, and we'll see whether or not the Seahawks take
Ooh.
a running back for the
Ooh.
11th straight
Yeah, the
year in round
Browns
two.
are at 54 and the Cowboys are at 56 and the Raiders are at 44. I mentioned the Browns just because we don't know what's going on with Nick Chubb. And yeah, and so they might want
Totally.
to take a stab at that, but that also will be their first pick in the entire draft. So, who knows?
I honestly, overall thoughts
Yes.
on round one, very
Yep.
exciting, very chalk to start. Not as many trades as I think we were thinking, but a whole lot to talk about and digest for fantasy football and some
Yeah,
great
and more
landing
to
spots
come in
for
the
sure.
next couple days, and I'm sure we'll have an entire NFL draft analysis when it comes to fantasy, when dynasty and redraft.
Absolutely, yeah. Uh, I think our plans for our next episode is going to be maybe a week or so out, and we're going to kind of be able to capture all of day two, all of day three, and
Right.
kind of just synthesize what it all means, kind of allow some of the preliminary analysis to take place, and then we'll kind of come back with our
Yes.
reactions looking
Yes.
towards draft
That
season,
sounds great to me.
fantasy draft season. Well, thanks for joining us. If you listened this long, we
Yes. Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you. And we look forward to the next episode.